Hi there, my name is Madeline McGee, and in this video I'm going to be talking about the connection between deprivation and a lack of federal representation in U.S. territories such as Puerto Rico and Washington, D.C. The article that I'm referencing was published online by The Atlantic, and the title is Second-Class Citizens: How D.C. and Puerto Rico Lose Out on Democracy. This article begins with an interview of a man named Malik who lives in a federal city shelter in Washington, D.C. The article says, Malik and some 632,000 other residents of Washington, D.C., together with over 4 million U.S. citizens in Puerto Rico and the territories, are denied voting equality under the law. Since delegates are not permitted to vote on legislation that comes before the House, Washington, D.C. and the territories are silent when it comes to deciding federal appropriations on education, social welfare, infrastructure, and other critical concerns. So basically what this means is that although these are citizens who are living in the United States, they are citizens, they pay taxes, but they are not given representation or the ability to vote. Out of the U.S. territories, only Washington, D.C. is allowed to vote, even in the general elections, and that only started happening back in 1961. To illustrate this point a little bit further, we are about to watch a clip from Last Week Tonight with John Oliver.
But voting rights in this country, much like John Travolta's hair, are still very much a work in progress. There are the obvious obstacles for many Americans, such as increasingly restrictive voter ID laws, but there's also the less obvious ones, as Congress was reminded just this week.
As we commemorate the 50th anniversary of the March on Selma this week and the subsequent passage of the Voting Rights Act, I want to once again call to the attention of my colleagues here in Congress that there are still American citizens today who do not have equal voting rights. These are citizens of Americans' island territories, the U.S. Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, Guam, and the Northern Marianas.
Yes, American citizens living in U.S. island territories do not get to vote for president. And that's the kind of unsettling fact that deep down you probably knew, but chose not to think about.
While this particular video does not apply to Washington, D.C. on quite the same level, since they were granted the right to vote for president back in 1961, I hope that it gives you at least a little bit better of an understanding of the issue at hand and understanding what's going on with the lack of representation. As Delegate Plaskett pointed out to Congress, there are citizens of the United States who still do not have the right to vote and who are not represented in the White House, in either the House of Representatives or in the Senate. This lack of representation in Congress dates all the way back to the acquisition of the first U.S. territories, when it was decided that the colonies would be separate but equal, meaning that while they still pay the same taxes as Americans and are also subject to being called into the military, they have no representation in the Senate, and they only have one non-voting representative in the House. So for my analysis part of the video, I just want to talk a little bit further about what exactly not having a vote means for many citizens in these territories. This article gives the statistic that in Washington, D.C., nearly 1 in 5 residents and 1 in 3 children is currently living in poverty, which is much higher than each of the 50 states. And in Puerto Rico, the poverty rate is about 46%, which is 3 times higher than the national rate. So this article mostly focuses on homelessness, and while homelessness can in part be based off of personal choices and bad decisions, it can also be due to circumstances and factors outside of people's control, especially in the case of children. So by extending congressional representation to the territories, these people would have equal opportunities to vote on critical issues that affect them, such as education, social welfare, healthcare policies, and more. At the very least, they would have somebody in Congress who's able to fight on their behalf for the things that they want and the things that they need. So that's all the information that I have to review tonight. I hope that this video is at least a little bit helpful in understanding how democracy works in these U.S. territories, and I hope that you learned something. Thanks for watching.